2, 1.
7 things you probably didn't know you need to know. I'm Jamie East, and this is the Standout.
In the next 7 minutes or so, we look back on a second week of war in Ukraine, with more Russian shelling and no progress in peace talks. And as the economic pressure cranked up, Joe Biden banned Russian oil and gas, Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich was sanctioned, and Ukrainian President Zelensky addressed the Commons over Zoom. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7. Don't forget to hit the follow button to get your daily updates at 7 a.m. This week saw Russia bomb a maternity hospital in Mariupol, which killed 3 people, including a child, and generated headlines and outrage around the world as war on Ukraine continues to escalate. Peace talks in Turkey between Russia and Ukraine on Thursday led to no progress, and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov denounced the outcry over the hospital attack, suggesting it had been taken over by radicals and that there were no real patients inside. He continued with more bizarre statements, including denying that Russia had attacked Ukraine at all, and a suggestion that Ukraine and the US were planning biological warfare on Russia.
We did not attack Ukraine. We explained to Ukraine that there's a situation which is posing direct threat to the Russian Federation. What Pentagon is doing in the biological laboratories in order to experiment using pathogens which could be used to create biological weapons.
Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba very politely offered to keep the discussions going, but said the humanitarian issues needed to be solved urgently.
I will be ready to meet again if there are prospects for a substantial discussion and for seeking solutions.
Russia planting the seed of the idea of Ukraine using biological or chemical weapons is causing considerable alarm among the US intelligence services at the prospect that Russia may themselves be planning to do just that. Boris spoke to Sky's Beth Rigby and says there's a real risk.
They start saying that there are chemical weapons that have been stored by their opponents when they themselves deploy chemical weapons, as I fear they may. They have a sort of a Maskirovka, a fake story ready to go.
To attack children is to attack life, civilization itself. If you don't want to see these images anymore, you must not look away. You must stop Putin's war now.
That's former heavyweight boxer Vladimir Klitschko reacting to the sight of Russia bombing a maternity hospital in Mariupol. It's left at least 17 people wounded, including women in labour, and reports of children buried under rubble. The Red Cross is now describing conditions in that city as apocalyptic after days of continuous shelling. Russia's also admitted to using thermobaric weapons in Ukraine, which causes horrific casualties. UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, speaking in Washington, condemned the attack.
The attack on the hospital is absolutely abhorrent, and the UK is at the forefront of supplying humanitarian aid into Ukraine.
The UK is sending more anti-tank missiles and the Starstreak anti-aircraft missile system, but Liz says there's still no prospect of a no-fly zone.
But the reality is that setting up a no-fly zone would lead to a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is due to meet Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba for face-to-face talks in Turkey on Thursday, but US Secretary of State Antony Blinken says there's no prospect of Russia winning this war.
I'm absolutely convinced that Putin will fail. You can win a battle, that doesn't mean you win the war. On the contrary, you can take a city, but you can't take the hearts and minds of its people.
Tuesday in Ukraine saw another Russian ceasefire intended to let civilians leave areas under bombardment break down, with the Russian army shelling the humanitarian corridor out of Mariupol. Some civilians did manage to escape from Sumy, and a further ceasefire is planned for evacuation on Wednesday morning. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was once again applying pressure on international partners in his bid to stave off Russia's advances, and he was greeted with a standing ovation as he appeared on Zoom to address the House of Commons.
Mr. President, you are welcome to address members of the House of Commons and the Lords. You now have the floor. President.
President Zelensky seemed to be channeling the spirit of Winston Churchill as he pledged to continue the fight.
We will fight till the end, at sea, in the air. We will fight in the forests, in the fields, on the shores, in the streets.
He also had words of thanks for Boris, but also took time to plead for further sanctions and pressure on the Russian aggressor.
I'm very grateful to you, Boris. Please increase the pressure of sanctions against this country, and please recognize this country as a terrorist state.
Boris responded with assurances of further support and a pledge to phase out Russian oil.
And I know I speak for the whole House when I say that Britain and our allies are determined to press on with supplying our Ukrainian friends with the weapons they need to defend their homeland as they deserve. To press on with tightening the economic vice around Vladimir Putin, and we will stop importing Russian oil.
The row over UK visas for fleeing Ukrainian refugees continued on Wednesday, with less than 1,000 issued, while the waiting list is now over 22,000. Ukraine's ambassador to the UK, Vadim Pristayko, testified in front of a Commons committee that even his wife had trouble getting a visa.
Moldova was already approved by your government half a year. My wife didn't have it. So even simple things like that, and bureaucracy is so tough.
During Prime Minister's question time, Lib Dem leader Ed Davey wanted to know why refugees from a war in Europe are being turned away.
Can the Prime Minister not see that this flies in the face of our country's proud tradition of providing sanctuary?
Boris says it's a security risk to just allow anyone through the border, even if they're fleeing from war.
No one has been turned away. There are some people, Mr. Speaker, who would like to dispense with checks altogether. I hear the voices on the benches opposite. I do think that is irresponsible, and that is not the approach that we should be taking.
Still to come on the Standout 7, Rebel Wilson's excited about the BAFTAs and tributes to a cricket legend. Right after this. Welcome back.
John Bercow was the larger-than-life Speaker of the House for 10 years, and his iconic cry of "Order, order" was a familiar sound. Thank you very much. However, he's now been banned from Parliament for life after an inquiry found he was a serial bully while Speaker. The former Speaker says the allegations are completely false.
I am most certainly not a serial bully. I didn't bully anyone. What I did was to argue for the agenda on which I had been elected. I am having to deal with charges that date back up to 12 years. It's quite manifestly and incontrovertibly a stitch-up.
There's a new host for this year's BAFTAs. Somewhat surprisingly, it's Australian actress and icon Rebel Wilson. She wowed everyone with her hilarious speech back in 2016 and again in 2020, and I guess it was enough to land her the big gig. She told the One Show that she's really looking forward to the big night this Sunday.
It's really cool that award shows are back. It's like, woo, the actors don't need to do wellness podcasts anymore. And it's all about just celebrating films. I mean, the British films, like their legacy is awesome. Like we're celebrating 75 years of James Bond, the 20th anniversary of Harry Potter, and the 3rd anniversary of Cats.
There was tragic news on Friday afternoon as one of cricket's all-time greats, Australian bowler Shane Warne, died while on holiday in Koh Samui. He appears to have had a heart attack in his hotel and friends were unable to revive him. He was just 52. He was a larger-than-life character and a tabloid favourite with books and even a musical chronicling his life. He spoke to BBC Breakfast just weeks ago and was very philosophical about the path his life has taken. Rest in peace, Shane.
You know, I've had some pretty tough times that I have to live with for the rest of my life through some poor choices. But, you know, some of them were a long time ago that people like to bring up. Some of them were 30 years ago. As a 20-odd-year-old, 21-year-old compared to a 51, 52-year-old person, you make better decisions when you're older. So, yeah, look, I wouldn't change too much.
This has been the Standout 7, the best of the week from the Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow, 7 a.m. with the Sunday 7. Have a great rest of your weekend. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.